What's up, YouTube? I'm Mike, and today I'm back. Actually, I decided to extend the series that I was already doing about my jury trial experience. So many of you seem to really enjoy that content and got hooked into that story. And so I really realized that there's kind of at least a part 7. I don't know if I'll release this as part 7 or a separate part in and of itself, but because of the fact that I did admit to some crimes and get convicted of a charge, then you go into what's called the sentencing phase of the court case. So that's what I'm going to try to talk to you a little bit about today, because there's kind of some fun tidbits that go along with the rest of the narrative. So for those of you who have been watching and commenting on all of those stories that I shared about my experience, I really appreciate you guys. This has actually been a lot more fun to shoot this content than I thought. And so I figured, fuck it, like, as long as there's somebody willing to watch, I'll keep the ball rolling. So I'm gonna pick up today where I left off, which is I've just basically got convicted, but like even the prosecutor said, we effectively won the case given what they were trying to get me convicted of, considering the fact that I was facing 12 years and ended up getting convicted of only one of the felony charges that they brought against me, and it was something that I admitted to from the gate. All in all, it was a win for our side. So the first bit of funny information is, after everything is closed up in the courtroom and everybody's exited the facility and everything, the cops who have been with me this 4 days obviously come to collect me, and they've got to. I'm still a prisoner because I'm going to prison. So they've got to come and collect me and go through the process of shackling me back up and everything. And they kept their composure in the courtroom, but there was like a lot of smiles and nods and shit, even when, at the end of the case, when the verdict was being read, and they were cool and let me embrace my family a little bit, who I hadn't seen or touched in 7 months. And so they were really, really solid men and women in this case. And so we exit the courtroom, we go back in, heading down into the bowels of the courthouse and the jail, and they wait until we get into the elevator. And again, when I'm in the elevator, it's like me, and I'm like surrounded by a ring of cops. And these some people, police officers may take exception to that. They're jailers, they're correctional officers. And so we get in the elevator, and it's like they're basically like cheering for me. They were like, "Man, that's the craziest shit we've ever seen. We've sat on so many trials." They had been rooting for me from the early going. Once the trial was over, they hadn't really been saying a whole lot during the proceeding, probably because they're not supposed to at all. I don't know that they were supposed to have said what they did afterwards, but they basically were echoing they echoed the jurors. They were like, "Man, we thought you were going to walk completely." And a couple of them were like, "Dude, we think this sucks. Like, man, I hate having to put you back into shackles. I wish I was taking you to the front door right now. Like, you did amazing. We see so many of these cases and so many different horrible things." And it was almost like they were proud to be the ones who had escorted me to this trial. Like, they had bought in. It was almost like they were on the winning team too, Like, they'd been pulling for me, and we all just kind of won this victory. And so now the whole demeanor is completely changed. Like, I'm still potentially a threat because I'm going to prison. So they're doing their job, but you can feel that the energy is totally different. Obviously, I've more than accepted my fate. I know I'm going to camp. I'm not much of a threat. And so it was just kind of a cool walk back, where we really spent the entire time going through the process, and they're like replaying their favorite bits from the trial, and talking about how crazy the prosecutor was, and how they'd never seen a jury laugh at a prosecutor like that, and it was a cool experience, man. Again, just in an otherwise shitty thing to have happen to you in life, it was just one of those really human moments, that made you feel less alone in what had been an otherwise really terrifying experience. Most of the times that I had been walking in that tunnel, I was going to one of the many pre-trial hearings where I was just finding out bad news after bad news after bad news. So most of the time that I had spent under guard, shackled, walking through that tunnel was just like, it felt like you were on death row every time, because it was just so much bad news and so much anxiety and so much, your mind is going a million different directions, and you feel like an animal because of the way you're being treated, and now like it's all like really sinking in. Like I did it, man. Like, I don't want to go to prison at all, but again, all things considered, this has gone really fucking great. And I had all, the guys in the jail unit had been preparing me for what to expect if I went to closed custody, which is maximum security, medium security, or minimum security. And so I just heard so many stories from various guys that were like, dude, you're not gonna believe it when you get to prison. Like, you're not gonna believe that this is really what prison is. They were like, it's like it's like daycare for adults. You're gonna be freaking out. And so, hey baby, is it bedtime? Come see me. Say hi. Night night, sleep tight. I love you.
Yeah, you.
I'll see you in the morning.
See you in the morning. I did not know you were shooting a video, so.
It's okay, baby. It's fine. My daughter always comes to tell me good night. So, anyway, so they take me back through the whole, the dungeon of the court, and, get the final congratulations, and, they're all basically saying, man, best luck to you. I think one of the cops said to me, he said, the best revenge that you can have. He's like, I'm sure like you're happy to have won or whatever, but I always tell guys that I feel like got a raw deal. The best way to get revenge is to go back into the world and do better. Like, don't go back into the world and succeed. That's how you really show everyone that you were the good guy in this thing. If you go out there and you don't let this hold you down and you succeed in life, like, that's the best kind of revenge you can get. And so he was just like, best of luck to you, man. So they take me into the unit, and of course, there's 60 plus guys in this unit that are all following this as closely as you guys are, because they're in various different stages of their own cases. Most of them have been have caught multiple charges. Some of them have been to trial and had it not go. But very, very few people go to trial. And I had sort of started inspiring other guys, to not take deals and to go to trial. Unfortunately, one of those went really badly. And a guy rejected the deal, and he was an idiot. This is terrible. He got his confidence up because I was fighting so hard, and he decided to fight his case. But what he failed to tell me was that his case was a robbery case. He tried to rob some business establishment, and they had this dude on fucking camera with full audio. Like, he was cooked. Like, that's when you don't go to trial. Like, if you know that you did the crime and they have a mountain of evidence to prove it, you definitively don't take that case to trial. You're going to get crucified. Because if you go to trial, they're going to come at you for the max. They offered this kid like 24 months. He took his shit to trial and got 60. So please don't, like, if you're watching this video, don't be that guy. Because that, unfortunately, I'm not taking responsibility for it. He's a grown-ass man. He made his own fucking decision. But it is easy to get caught up in somebody else's emotion. I know a lot of people on this channel you know, they see my experiences with Trent and then they run off and do it themselves. And one guy messaged me the other day and he told me, he's like, dude, I lost my job in the first 15 days on Cycle. And I'm like, guys, don't follow my lead, okay? And so anyway, so there's all these guys in the unit who are, they're just as excited. Like they're waiting to find out what the results are. And so they're literally, when they find out that I'm coming back to the unit, there's just like this huddle of people, including the unit officer, whose last name is Diaz. He was a super cool fucking guy. I can't say enough about this. I had really good experiences with the jailers in Snohomish County. They 99% of them were just fucking solid as fuck guys. Really, really helped me in a lot of ways. And so they opened the door to let me in, and there's just all these people standing there, and I just get this big grin on my face, and it was like eruption, like all the guys, they were like, yeah, did you get it? Did you win? Did you win? And I'm like, dude, you know, like I got what I fucking, you know, what I admitted to. And they were prepped. Like they knew what I was expecting. And so to go from a 7-year deal, 12 years on day one, all the way down to one classy felony. I mean, it was like I was a fucking celebrity, honestly. It was party time in the unit. And so it was crazy. It was just a crazy experience. They're asking all these questions about what happened, and I'm retelling what it was like being on the stand, and it was just wild. So I got a chance that evening to talk to my parents, and you know, after like the emotion of everything had cooled down, and you know, my dad asked, you know, how are you doing? And I said, you know, I'm good. Because I had told him, I'm going to be honest with you. I had told him, like, I'm not going to do 12 years, okay? So this is kind of a one-way fight. Like, if I get convicted of 12 years, I'm going to wait until I get to classifications wherever we can have a contact visit, and I'll come see you guys one more time, and then I'm gonna bow out, because I'm not gonna sit here. I'm not gonna spend 12 years in prison. And so, and my dad believed me. Like I'd written enough letters on the topic that he knew, like, he's serious. Like he's gonna do this shit if push comes to shove. And so he was nervous to see how my demeanor would really be, you know, once the adrenaline had subsided. And he's like, are you good? And I'm like, man, I'm great. Like, I'm so relieved. You know, I knew a lot about camp at this point, is what they call it, prison camp. And so I was doing good. And so then what you have that occurs is another waiting game. So from the date of your conviction, I can't remember if it was 15, 30 days, 45 days, somewhere in there, until you go to sentencing, which is where the judge gets to fuck you. And so I started preparing to go to prison. So like I was like, you know, shaggy hair like I have now, except I was 27. I was real skinny. I had no beard. I looked like a baby, you know what I mean? I look like the kind of person who might get victimized in prison. And so I had started developing what I called my wolf's clothing. I knew I was kind of a sheep, but I couldn't go into prison a sheep. I had to go into prison a wolf. And since I didn't feel like, I didn't know that I could be a wolf at that point in my life, because I didn't have the confidence and I didn't have the body, the muscles, and the everything that Trent gives you. And so I thought, well, at least I could put on the wolf's clothing. So I started growing a fucking goatee and some like fucking savage chops in, because I've always been able to grow really dark black hair on my face. And I took my fucking hair down. I shaved it like all the way down, skinned my head in. And because I wanted to look the part. You know, like I've already gone to court. Like I look pretty for the jury. And so I go to, we finally have our sentencing, and I was going to be guaranteed 18 months because of the weapon enhancement. And he could have given me as few as 3 months. So let me do some math real quick. So, like I was telling you, the judge fucking hated me. And so we asked for 18 months plus 3 with time served, because I'd already done 7 months. And of course, the prosecution asks for the maximum. And there were 2 people in the court. There was 3 people in the courtroom when I got sentenced, outside my attorney and I. One of them was my ex-wife, and she was sitting there with the victim's advocate. And the other person was juror number 12, that fucking juror that I told you hated me. She showed up to sentencing. There may have been one of the other jurors, I can't remember. Those are the ones that stuck out the most. And so, my crime carried a range of 3 to 9 months. Being a first-time offense, standard sentencing is you get the low end of the range. So I should have gotten 19 months total. And the judge who hated me, I was given the opportunity to speak on my defense. And I said, look, Your Honor, I was forthcoming on the stand. I took responsibility for my actions. I'm going to continue to take responsibility for my actions. I would just ask that you remember that I have a minor child and I cannot take care of my son from behind the walls of a prison. And so I hope that you will give me a chance to get out and take care of him as soon as possible. And so I would ask that you sentence me, consistent with the guidelines, the low end of the range. And then, of course, the prosecutor's there, and he tries to reiterate what a piece of shit he thinks I am and how I got away with one. And so the judge, rather than sentencing me to 18 months, which would have been the low end of the range, or, 21 months, which would have been the low end of the range, he gave me 24 months, which was the middle end of the range. If he had gone above that, it would have opened the entire case up for an appeal. In fact, I think because he went middle of the range, I technically could have appealed it. But then you have to fight the thing all over again, and there's no guarantee that you'll get the same jury or anything. And so it's like, it's a couple months difference. It is what it is. And so that's what I got. So he sentenced me to a total of 24 months, obviously minus the time that I had already done. What I didn't know at the time is that when you're in county, good time accrues at a higher rate. So I ended up doing like 23 on 24, I think, something like that was the actual amount of time that I spent locked up. So once sentencing is over, and again, Amanda's in the courtroom with her bitch scowl on her face, and the reality is she did herself no favors. The guy that she shacked up with, she ended up, it was a sham relationship from the beginning. She ended up cheating on him with one of his friends. She got pregnant, and then she aborted his baby without even telling him. And then he later found out, and it was the end of their relationship. And so she ended up starting to go from guy to guy, and it fucked her life up. Like, she had a nice, comfortable life with me, and these people poisoned her into telling some fucking outrageous story. And so she was really honestly suffering more than I was the entire time, because I'm sitting in fucking camp just having a great time, which I'll get to shortly. So I got to see her one more time before I left, and then they took me back to the unit where you're now, what you're doing is you're waiting for, it's called the chain bus to come and get you. You're waiting for your chain letter. So there's a period of time. It could be as little as a couple of weeks. It could take a month for all the paperwork to be processed. And then eventually you will wake up one morning, and there was like a bus schedule that was relatively consistent. They try to change things up a little bit so that there's no like attempted like prison escapes. They don't want somebody to try to attack the transport bus because because they're transporting all kinds of people. It's not just like low-level offenders. So I think I had like 3 more weeks in county. Just kick back, man. Just had some buddies that we were playing cards with. We were running some card hustles, honestly. On some of the new guys, we were kind of hustling card games. And so we were stacking up commissary, and it was like a big boys club. And I had, resigned to my fate. And so I was just reading books, playing cards, watching TV, and just killing time, until one morning I woke up and I had gotten my chain letter. And so the chain letter means that that day you are going to be transported to, in the state of Washington, you get transported to a classifications facility called Shelton. And that's where all they don't call you criminals, they call you offenders. You're an offender and you have an offender number, and so they can't call you inmate or anything like this. And so all the offenders get transferred on the prison bus that I'm sure you've seen like in movies and shit. It's like a big school bus that's like armored as fuck. And so the unfortunate thing is that the day you get your chain letter, they cut your phone off so that you can't contact your people and let them know that you're leaving that day. Furthermore, to prevent them from possibly trying to bust you out. And so I was, you're not able to. My dad knew it was coming, and we had a deal that as soon as I got to actual real prison, I'd call him and let him know, kind of a proof of life situation, let him know how things are going. And so, at that point, the nerves, admittedly, they go up because now you've been in this county facility for 7 months, and you've settled in, the schedule, you've gotten used to the food, which is one of the, I'll finish up this particular video by sharing some of the interesting things that happen to you during the county process. So when you first get to county, and you're used to living on the streets, and not the streets, but it's what they call the street. When you're used to being free. And I had a very comfortable living when I was free man. I made good money, and so I had a nice place, and everything was I was living nicely. And then you get to jail, and your first experience is you're locked into this filthy place, and your first meal comes, and it's just gruel. I mean, it's just fucking disgusting food. The majority of the calories actually come in the form of bread. I do not eat bread at all. Like, I eat pizza, I'll eat a hamburger, but just like raw, like just a slice of bread or like a roll or just like a chunk of bread, there's a reason for this. Maybe I'll tell you in a video. It had to do with an oral problem I had when I was a child. And so I just have this like trigger to bread. And so when I was in the hole, I was just starving to death. Like the food's just nasty. And so when I got into general population, you're not really supposed to trade food, but as long as somebody's getting punked and the cops have a pretty good feel about the unit, they kind of just ignore it, as long as you're kind of sneaky about it. And so there'll always be deals going on. Somebody will be like let's say it's breakfast day and somebody doesn't want their hard-boiled eggs, and then they'll be like, hey man, I got eggs for grits. I got toast for eggs or whatever. Like, they're always trying to make little trades and shit. Or some guys will be trying to trade their entire tray for commissary. Like, I'll give you my whole breakfast if you'll give me 2 nutty bars and a fucking ramen noodle soup. It's like this whole like prison economy, county jail economy going on. And so there's like these little sneaky hustles going on, and the cops don't really pay attention. And so when you get to county, you spend a lot of time just giving your food away because you just fucking can't eat it. It's disgusting comparatively to what you've been getting on the street. After a few fucking months, you become the guy who's like, hey, new guy, hey man, you gonna eat that? He's like, no. You know, I'm like, well, fucking let me have it. You know, I'm eating seconds and thirds, you know, after you've been there for a while. And so it's amazing how adaptive the human animal is. So you get into this place, and in the first couple of weeks, you are just recoiling from the experience. Like, I can remember being locked in those tiny little cells, and I was like literally thinking like about trying to claw my way out, or you know, you're like looking at the window, you're looking at the pipes, like your brain cannot cope with the fact that it's suddenly being trapped in this box. And you're just recoiling from the experience. And the same thing with the food. You're like, I'm gonna fucking die. I can't. And then slowly but surely, you just start putting more and more of it in your mouth, and then you get a taste for it. And 7 months in, I'm loving it. Like I'm getting seconds and thirds from the new guys, and so your entire demeanor changes. Another thing that happens to you when you get locked up for any length of time is that you are suddenly kept away from the opposite sex, and you will get what they call prison goggles. So like when I first got to prison, or first got to county, on the day that the commissary would come, you would order commissary on like, I don't know, it was like a Friday, and it would come on a Monday, or you'd order it on a Monday and it'd come on a Friday. It'd take a while. There was this order process. You'd put your order in, and then on commissary day, there was a girl who would come to the unit with this giant cart, and she'd have all these bags, and it would have each of the individual inmates' commissary in it. And so when I first got there, they're like, oh, it's commissary day. And I'm like, I didn't have any money in my books yet. So I'm like, fuck you, you know? I don't want to hear about this shit. And they're like, no, dude, you gotta see the commissary girl, man. She's fucking hot, dude. Like, oh my God, what I wouldn't do to get a piece of that. And I'm like, okay, you know, let's have a look. And so we're all in the window, you know, and we're looking, and here comes the commissary girl. And I'm like, oh my God, like, what the fuck? This girl is dog ugly, dude. Like, no, what is wrong with you? And they're like, oh man, you're crazy. She's so smoking hot. There's a thing they used to say, I'll paraphrase, is gross. They would say, I would eat 3 yards of her something just to see where it came from. Ugh. That's what they used to say. And so these guys are just like, they're hooting and hollering, and they think, you would think, you know, Angelina Jolie in the Good Days just walked through the door. Well, and I'm like, man, this bitch is disgusting. Well, 7 months later, I'm like elbowing my celly like, hey dude, you gotta check out the commissary girl. She's fucking smoking hot. So your entire worldview totally changes. Everything that you know about reality. This is definitively nasty tasting food. This is a really terrible place to be. This girl is a 2 on her hottest day in the best makeup and outfit she's ever owned. And next thing you know, every meal is like Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, and the commissary girl is like vying with Margot Robbie to see who's gonna be the next hottest actress in the latest movie that's coming out. Like, you have no scope of reality left because you're not exposed to anything. And so it just totally twists up the way you see the world. And that's one of the things that's so actually damaging is, you know, me having gone to prison irrevocably changed my personality. Some people in the comments have been like, man, now that you've told us the story about what you went through, being homeless and going to prison and going through this lead, now we kind of get why you're this crazy guy. Dude, you cannot go through these experiences and not be changed forever. So in the same way that the food becomes good and the commissary girl becomes hot, all of these, there's certain behaviors and attitudes that you have toward society, people in society, criminal justice system, authority figures, all of that shit starts to get unraveled inside your brain. And when you come out of these places, everything in your life from that point on is changed. And so a lot of the things that make me who I am today, unfortunately, were forged by this experience. And some of them, you know, once you get back to the real world, some of them, you know, go back to normal, but not everything. It leaves an indelible mark on your entire psyche, your entire personality, and in the entire way that you view the world. So this video was ran longer than I thought it was going to because my camera just shut down, so we're at least 30 minutes in. So that's what happens after you get convicted, how you get sentenced, and then how you find out that you're actually now on your way to prison. So I will come back in another video and I will tell you about the process of how they prep you from the county jail, put you in the transport, and then transport you to the classifications prison to determine where you're going to go, what prison you're actually going to spend the majority of your time in. And that fucking situation is one of the scariest things I've ever been through in my entire life. So stay tuned for that. I don't know how I'm going to title these videos, but in the next video in the series, I'll talk to you about going to classifications and being classified into the Washington State prison system. So there you have it. As always, we'll see you on the next one.